Hey there, and welcome to the Just Podcast. I'm Tim Buxton, and I'm recording today on Yugambeh country. That is the land of the Comerbury saltwater peoples here on the beautiful Gold Coast. And I want to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge the deep wisdom connection that they carry to this land. This podcast is all about courageous conversations. That's chats with leaders and creatives and everyday heroes who are helping shape a more just world. So whether you're into social impact, sustainability, storytelling, or just trying to figure out how to live with more intention and purpose in this world, you're in the right place. Today's guest is Etelle Higonnet. She's a human rights lawyer and defender and the founder of Coffee Watch. She's someone who's made it her life's work to challenge exploitation in all its forms. So that's from the cocoa fields to coffee farms and pretty much everywhere in between. And what if I told you that your morning coffee was fueling deforestation, child labor, or even slavery, and no one told you about it? In this episode, Etelle pulls back the curtain on the truth behind everyday products and the billionaires, greenwashing, climate action, and why love, ultimately, and not guilt, is actually the most powerful driver of that change. I promise you're never going to look at your morning coffee, that latte, the same way again. So let's jump in to today's episode of the Just Podcast. Well, welcome, Etelle Higonnet, to the Just Podcast. Etelle, you are the founder of Coffee Watch, and also a board member of Climate Defiance. You have made it a habit in your life of challenging exploitation. We were joking before as we were chatting. I'm sure there's many business and company owners or politicians that when they see you walking down the hallway, get a little nervous, try and hide. They're probably a little afraid of maybe some kind of legal action that might be coming their way, or some type of opposition that you and an amazing group of people that you surround yourself with that really want to make a difference in this world and ensure that exploitation, not only of our environment, but also of humanity at large, it has no place in our society. Such a privilege to have you on the show today to hear more about your journey and some of the things that you're really passionate about. I guess the first question for me really is, how did you get drawn to this work? I mean, you've worked with organizations that I'm very familiar with, Human Rights Watch. I'm very close friends with the current Asian director of Human Rights Watch, who's also been on this podcast, Elaine Pearson, also from Australia. You've worked with Amnesty and different kinds of organizations all over the world, places like Iraq and Sierra Leone. We've shared some countries there that we've been working or close to our hearts. But where did you get drawn into this work? You're presume you're from France, but hey,
the name give it away.
That might not be the case. But yeah, tell me a bit about your journey into this kind of work. Where did it all begin for you, Etelle?
Well, first of all, Tim, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's me that should say that it's a privilege to be here with you. And yeah, I think that so much of what you do as a social entrepreneur to defend the rights of people who are refugees and who are really getting the fuzzy end of the lollipop, it speaks to my heart. So thank you for what you do. But yeah, no, my name gave it away. I'm my father's friend. I grew up mostly in France. My mom is American, so I did go to uni and law school in the US at Yale. But yeah, what set me on my human rights journey, apparently I was around 3 or 4 when I popped into the living room and put my plump little hand on my plump little hip and said, I want to be a doctor without borders. My parents were like, what are you talking? And this is la frontière, what? And I did not become a doctor without borders, mostly because I'm very bad at math and science. So although it was my dream, I basically could not achieve that. But I became a human rights lawyer and activist, and then an environmental and human rights activist. And I've never looked back. I just, I can't even really imagine a job where I wouldn't be fighting for human rights.
Yeah. You traded the scalpel for a pen, it sounds like it, of some sorts, which is probably
Although I have a really funny story about MSF. Once when I was working in the Civil War in Ivory Coast, there was like no really safe place to spend the night out in the far west where I was trying to document these crimes against humanity, especially like sexual slavery and sexual violence against women perpetrated by both sides, actually the rebel and the government side. And MSF very kindly said like, "Oh, you can sleep in our base," you know. So I said, "Well, what can I do to repay this kindness?" And they said, "Yeah, you can bring these boxes of stuff to our." I was like, "Oh, I'm so excited! I'm being entrusted with this important work. It must be life-saving medical equipment." And I went through like all these checkpoints, and I wouldn't let anyone touch the box. And I sort of defended it with my life. And then I got there, and it was just Marmite. It was Marmite for the doctors, and they were so happy to see the Marmite. It was almost better than it was life-saving medical equipment,
I
but
was
it
gonna
was just
say
Marmite.
they're probably sick and seeing another box of bandages and scalpels, and they're like, "Yes, something from home," something that but
So
Marmite, I mean, that
maybe
for
I traded the scalpel for Marmite as well.
yes. Now if it was Nutella, I probably would have been happy. Not sure about Marmite, but that's probably the
Oh,
Aussie in me that
well, Nutella,
I
now
think
you're getting into the realm of their cocoa sustainable and their palm oil and their
yes,
hazelnuts. I mean, now I think that Nutella has really turned things around. Actually, their parent company is called Ferrero, one of the bigger Italian food companies. But,
yes.
for a long time, they had very substantial problems with their cocoa and their hazelnuts. You who've worked in Iraq, to my recollection, there were child refugees working in their hazelnuts in Iraq, and just really poor conditions for their hazelnut workers. But I myself did a lot of work documenting abuses in cocoa, like child labor and really just appalling labor abuses, some of which did end up in the supply chain of Ferrero, as I recall. They've turned things around. I think that's proof positive that companies can evolve and grow and change and become their better selves when you push them. But I
I
would
mean,
I
that
would
is a
have to think hard before I brought you some Nutella too.
I was gonna say that is a perfect segue and a perfect example of like there is so much to unpack, for everyday people. Even if you're in, a certain area of work that you're passionate about, there's so much we're not aware of, so many things, I might know a lot about, as you say, refugee work, displacement, but when it comes to supply chains for coffee or supply chains for the fashion industry and how a lot of that works. I've got a great friend who works in that space quite a lot, founder of a fashion company, Outland Denim, that does a lot of work to make sure they, you know, obviously not only eco
Yeah.
friendly in the way they produce their denim, but they don't and every stage of their production does not exploit
Well,
either
look, that's
people
so
nor
beautiful, right? And
environment.
doesn't it kind of give you hope? Because, there's so many horrible things that happen in the apparel industry, right? Cotton is this huge water guzzler. It's often just soaked in chemicals. There's terrible abuses of human rights in Uzbek cotton, if I'm not mistaken, in West Africa. But then you can have cotton that's organic. You can have cotton that is paying a living wage, living income price. And, when you really get into it, there's I remember seeing something that just blew my socks off. Levi's, this behemoth in the garment space,
Mhm.
have come up with jeans that are use 99% less water. They're called waterless jeans. It just reminds one that even in a really dark, gruesome industry like the fashion industry, which gave us famously Rana Plaza, probably almost all your listeners know about that cataclysm for human rights of Bangladeshi garment workers where this building collapsed. Lots of people died and were injured. And yeah, Rana Plaza is just kind of like the poster child of how bad the fashion industry can be. But even in such a dark and bitter space, like there's just hope, right? There is hope. There are people doing good things. There are people who are transforming the fashion industry through hook and crook and creativity and beauty. They manage to make things that are ecologically and labor wise something that you'd be proud to wear. And it can be that way
Yeah.
not just with your apparel, but with anything, your car, your food, your coffee, your
Yeah,
Nutella.
exactly. And I guess it starts sometimes at the point end, right? It starts where you have to hold people account, and that's not always fun, right? It's not always fun to have to do the research. And it's not always fun to have to really get to the facts of a situation because, a lot of lot of the dark things are hidden, right? They're hidden behind marketing and greenwashing and all kinds of strategies, that become, and lawyers and all these other paywalls, right, to that you have to kind of push your way through to get the information, but the importance is you've got to then hold people to account. And in a world, I guess, where we can't even trust media these days, we can't. People are losing trust in the facts, and it's who's reputable
Yeah.
is becomes more and more difficult to ascertain. I think people deep down can know, but I think there's a lot of challenges for people like you, Etelle, and in the work that you do. What in that area of your work, what has been, I guess, the greatest challenge, and but then what gives you the greatest hope in that area of having to do that the heavy lifting and to hold people account.
A great question. Tim, before I talk about greatest challenge and greatest hope, I want to just come back to something you said that's so important. You talked about the media, and I think that, for the longest time, a lot of mainstream media would kind of present climate change as, well, on the one hand, Greenpeace says, but on the other hand, Chevron says, let's give them equal space on the page. And
Mm,
I think that media traditionally has always tried to present on the one hand, on the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand. So you understand they've sort of formatted to work in that way. But the
mm,
fact that they reported on climate that way for a long time did us all a huge disservice. It's almost as stupid as if we were the weather channel and you and I are talking about the weather and you say like, well, it's raining outside today and it's 30 degrees here in Australia. What about you in Copenhagen? I'm like, no, 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 it's not raining where you are. I've decided it's sunny just because I can. I'm like, but that's not factually accurate. And I'm like, nope, doesn't matter. No, or you said like, well, Italy won the World Cup. And I'd be like, no, it's Russia. So in a way that the media, I think, gave a platform to all these fossil fuel companies that had extremely plausible sounding lawyers and lobbyists, and they created this sort of like echo chamber of think tanks, which I think we should rename as junk tanks because they peddled so much junk science to us. But all these sort of merchants of doubt and lobbyists and junk tank people and greenwashers, and I would also say like the concierge class amongst politicians that service the fossil fuel industry because they get money from them. The media gave those people so much airtime, so much space, and it has created a level of confusion that humans in general don't quite understand A, how bad the climate crisis is, and B, how bad the mass extinction crisis is, and C, like what's causing it. I bet most of your listeners do not know that agriculture causes 1/3 of climate change and
mm,
80% of biodiversity loss. Like our mass extinction that's characterizing the age of the Anthropocene, this is because of big ag. It is not in the media. It just isn't really reported. But ag is killing our planet. And don't get me wrong, the fossil fuel industry is also killing our planet. But, just to your point about the media, I think it's so important to tell your listeners that they need to like seize their own destiny and educate themselves about climate change and agriculture and mass extinction because that stuff is like too depressing also for mainstream media. So they're just not going to hear it. But our lives are on the line. So this is kind of
yeah.
important for people to learn about, unlike whether Taylor Swift, is going to get married in the Bahamas or Hawaii. Like your future depends on this ag stuff. So we should be.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've kind of maybe highlighted what the bedrock challenge then really is comes back to this idea of information and media and I guess it's been on some exponential curve since the emergence of AI and the ease and proliferation of I guess deep fakes and the ability to kind of really trick humanity into what is and what isn't real. Because I like to stay on that a little bit because every one of us are really getting our information from somewhere, you know?
Mhm.
And I think whether you I listen to NPR radio. Like I just get like news snippets every now and then. I guess it's a big broadcasting kind of news channel, which
Currently being slashed by Trump, but yes, still on.
currently exactly at the same
Maybe not
time,
from now, but it's
do
been good while it lasted.
yeah, do I it's only selecting for me the little snippets that it thinks it's important for me, highly US centric, which for me in Australia doesn't always, but I still get a fair amount of what's going on in the world. But my son's like, what does NPR stand for? I actually couldn't, I made something
National
up.
Public Radio.
As I said, it's public radio of some sort, but I didn't know what the N was. and, and he just shook his head like he knew what I was talking about, but I knew it didn't mean much to him either. All that to say, unless you've got the time and energy to read far and wide, do your own research, dig down into everything that's being told to you, you're getting a lot of information, and most of it's opinion these days. It's just someone's either predetermined agenda or just their opinion of what's going on. I guess in the challenges that we're facing now with media and truth. One, obviously, how important is it for organizations like Coffee Watch and others to actually be out there doing that hard work, and how can we ensure that people are actually getting the information that they need for us to make these collective decisions, right, in the world that benefit all of us, right, benefit humanity? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether it is climate, animal justice, human rights, it's all affecting all of us, and at the end of the day, we all feel the pinch, whether we like it or not.
Well, I would say that, the main reason I founded Coffee Watch is to shed light and bring information to people about something that's just catastrophically under-researched. And I will say, when I worked at Greenpeace, for a long time, I worked in human rights, like 12 and a half years. I worked at Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, mostly worked on basically like investigating crimes against humanity in war zones and post-conflict areas. Then I had this come to Jesus moment, and I realized FCUK. I don't want to swear on your program, but yeah. Snickerdoodle, we're screwed. We're not going to have any human rights on a dead planet. So this is when I hopped over to Greenpeace, and then I learned this shocking thing, which is that 2% of global philanthropy goes to climate. That just
say that again.
2% of global philanthropic giving goes to climate stuff. So I started working at Greenpeace, and then I, dug deeper and realized that agriculture was driving 30% of climate change and 80% of mass extinction, but agriculture was getting 8% of the 2%. So agriculture was like the orphan of climate, and climate's already the orphan of global philanthropy. And then another bombshell went off in my brain, which is that forests, they're kind of like the lungs of the planet, are like global system to keep us alive. Are the equivalent of like a pump pumping us. If you're in a hospital lying on a bed, you've got all those tubes, and that's what forests are for us. They're our life support system. And there are 7 commodities that are killing them. It's good news and bad news. 7 deadly sins. It's only 7. We can probably fix those things. Bad news is there are 7 of them that we have to fix. And I realized that actually, although a lot of people had started to work on palm oil, cattle, soy, and pulp and paper, nobody was working on cocoa, coffee, and rubber. So at Greenpeace, I basically tightened my belt and tried to do everything that I could to help the teams that were working on palm oil and pulp and paper, which are major drivers, bigger than cocoa, coffee, and rubber. But I also, with some of my colleagues from Greenpeace, we started this group called Mighty Earth, led by Glenn Hurowitz, to fill in the gaps of what Greenpeace could not do. So Greenpeace had literally decided not to work on cocoa, coffee, and rubber, and on high-risk areas in palm oil. So much at Greenpeace are under attack, lawsuits, threats, death threats even, and constantly on a shoestring budget. So this is not to criticize Greenpeace, but this is just to say, when I realized how critically problematic our situation was, that we're hurtling towards this existential climate crisis, right? And nature crisis. And that we've got so little attention going to the 7 commodities that are driving so much of that. That's when I realized, oh my gosh, I have to dedicate a big chunk of my life to kind of shedding light on those things and raising awareness. And at Mighty Earth, which I helped to start with Glenn, when he brought me over, we still didn't have a name or a logo. I
Mm.
started these first ever global campaigns to stop deforestation in cocoa and in rubber, which are numbers 5 and 7 of global deforestation. And it was a game changer. I think it really did impact those two industries massively. I had never, the earth could make the time or carve out the energy to attack the coffee industry, but it is the number 6 driver of deforestation in the effing world. It is number
Mm.
6. And there's nobody working to try to stop that, really. No watchdog group. So finally, after years of trying to do it this way and that way, I was like, okay, I'm just going to start Coffee Watch. I will just try to fight deforestation in the coffee industry, because most people who are perfectly nice people, Tim, who are walking the planet drinking coffee every morning, they're good souls. They have no idea. The media doesn't tell them. Companies don't tell them. Governments don't tell them. Coffee is the number 6 driver of deforestation. It is awash with slavery, child labor, rape, union busting, and extreme poverty. That's crazy. You're drinking slavery. Most people would never agree if they knew would spit their coffee out, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's hard, isn't it? To That's the challenge is for someone like you who unpacks and peels back the onion, you could say, but when you finally get to the root causes of certain things, it's hard to see a connection all the way over here with the coffee I've got in my
Yes,
hand
that's true.
and all of the evil essentially that you're unpacking there. How
It's set up that way, right? It's set up to be opaque and confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it is. You could say there's this malicious intent by obviously companies and business that are making profit. Again, coming back to something we were kind of, I guess, alluding to earlier, the greater system that seems to be kind of governing most of the decisions that are made in our world today, as driven by consumerism, by companies that have one goal and one goal only, which is to appease shareholders and to make everyone their Ks or their superannuation. Like we're all tied again into this messy web of of a system that has some key drivers that are, I guess, set up that way.
Yes.
But at the same
Interesting
time, not
is
to
our
give people.
system is, it's true, is creating the conditions
Yes.
for human rights and environmental abuse to proliferate in supply chains. Because as you said, company executives, C-suite executives, they're rewarded for having a great quarter. They're rewarded for bringing shareholders value. They're not rewarded for ensuring that the planet is going to be functional in 20 or 30 years and that the business can thrive in the next generation's lifetime.
Yes.
They're not rewarded for protecting the planet and people, farmers and forests. And because our system is so broken and it doesn't incentivize the C-suite of major corporations to protect people and planet, means that as activists, we have to step up and create those guardrails and create that pressure, because I think companies can be their best selves. It's up to us to basically force them to walk a better path in the absence of governments willing to do the job. When the
Well,
government's
in one
asleep at the
sense,
wheel.
if the system was set up different, where a CEO of a company who worked his butt off, right, to rise through the ranks to get to where he's got to, now suddenly he's held to account to, and maybe all along the way it was just making the guy or the girl, most likely the guy, above them, happy, right? And so they've learnt this way of working that it only matters if they're happy. But in their world, let's just jump in their skin if we could. Their world is like my identity, my all the things that are wrapped up in my world, in terms of my who I am and whether I have a job and the pressure of someone else who's just going to take it is all dependent on me. Kind of just this is it. I've just got to
Yes,
make people happy. If I make them happy, I'll do whatever it takes, right? And
that's
so
right.
they're also
They're
that's
human.
their whole world of decision making,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
They're
like you
human. They have
said,
kids, they have bills, they have
exactly,
pressures,
they're like me and you. And at
all
the
of
end of the
us. They're
day,
like
what do
me
I
and you.
care most about? I care most about what affects me in my personal world. Not to give them a pass, but like you said. So I guess the levers, the incentives here that could be changed. Where what if that wasn't the only metric you were measured by? What if the goalposts and the measurements of your success, which I think comes down to living just in a more mature world, to put it a certain way, or a world where you think more long term rather than what is just the short term survival mode. Like let's think of a more expansive, imaginative incentives rather than what makes me the quick buck, what gets me the quick win now, what helps me step
This
on
quarter.
someone to climb
Yeah.
the ladder. Pardon?
Yeah. What helps me this quarter?
This quarter, exactly, which is again comes back to, um, how do we then create that environment, that space as well in this work so that it changes from both ends?
I'm so hugely optimistic, Tim. I see people like you and the kind of goodness and humanity that you radiate, and people on your show that because I've listened to your show, people that you have interviewed radiate. I truly believe that we can change the coffee industry. And I say this, I'm really in it to win it because I've seen that other very high risk commodities that we're trashing people and planet have been forced to change at scale. So one example that's most people have never heard of, again, we'll come back to the media that doesn't really report on
Yeah.
a lot of crucial things. It's called the soy moratorium, police by the Grupo de Trabalho de Soja in Brazil. Before the soy moratorium came along, there was like 30% deforestation for soy in the Brazilian Amazon. And then that went down after the soy moratorium to about 1%. And it's been that way for a long time now,
Mm,
well over a decade. So the same industry that's deforesting for soy in other Brazilian biomes like the Chaco or the Cerrado, or in the non-Brazilian Amazon like in Bolivia, they've proven that they are perfectly capable of doing no deforestation soy in a gigantic, precious biome, the Amazon, which I'm sure most of your listeners like love deeply, even if they've never been there. And my husband's Brazilian, so our honeymoon was there, and I loved the Amazon deeply, even though I'm not born in Brazil. I think it's part of one of the gems of the planet, and most of us recognize that. So that story gives a lot of hope. Or how about another one, palm oil, which was another titan of deforestation. Of those 7 commodities, those 7 deadly sins for forests that I was talking about, palm oil's right up at the top with cattle and soy. The palm oil industry over a period of 17 years just immensely changed from not giving a rat's ass about
mm,
forests and indigenous people and free prior informed consent and labor rights to really well over 90% of the industry has committed to something called NPDE, no deforestation, no exploitation. Exploitation kind of encompasses no rape, no child labor, no forced labor, no debt bondage, things like that. It's not to say that soy is great and palm oil is great all the time and perfect, and that you should feel like we've, ticked that box and moved on. But no, these hard won immense battles proved that you can change these industries at scale. There's still bad apples. There's still comes with commitments that aren't strong enough or that aren't implemented well enough. But wow, those things, and there are more. I could keep going, but I will not. But we know that entire industries can change and be better. And I truly think that with coffee, we're lucky that most consumers actually really care about their coffee. They only care right now if it's like a dark roast or a light roast. Was my foam in my cappuccino foamy enough? Was the pumpkin spice pumpkin-y enough? But I think that the day that they understand that they are drinking slavery and child labor and deforestation and wake up and smell that set of problems, they will come to care about those as much as the mouthfeel and the umami and the floral notes and the bitterness.
yeah.
And I
It'll taste
really think,
better when that
yeah,
yeah.
I think people are good. Most people are good people, apart from some like Nazi adjacent billionaires. Most people are good people
Mhm.
and they want to do the right thing. And if it's something that they care about that's visible and understandable to them, like coffee, boom, all we have to do is bring knowledge to millions of people. And luckily, companies hate bad reviews online. They hate consumers writing mean messages on social media. They hate bad press. And that gives us a lot of power. Customers can really change the industry, even in the absence of good government and good law enforcement and good laws and good systems. Because like you said, you were right, the system is broken. But we can be fixers.
Yes. A couple of thoughts come to mind, when you know, that pressure that we can apply, the levers that we can pull to kind of convince obviously both consumers to change their habits, but also I think for the ones that really hold the power in this, the big companies and the big corporations and even politicians, right, to change. And it comes back to on LinkedIn, there was someone kind of highlighted a section of an interview in which very well known billionaire who claims to be a very big proponent of attacking the climate change through their companies, predominantly one electric vehicle company, talks about kind of hailed in this interview for kind of calling out nonsense, saying everyone else is out there saying they're doing good, and all these companies are out there doing saying they're doing good, but I'm here doing good. Um, Making this big, big claim for actually wanting to save the planet and being on the forefront of climate change through their company. And a lot of people are thinking, yes, that's why this amazing entrepreneur is my hero, right? This is why I love them so much. And so, but for me personally, my personal opinion, the way I kind of saw this, it didn't it was akin to basically greenwashing, really saying, look, I've got the power to be able to and the platform to say all these things, and everyone's just going to agree with them without really doing the real hard work of really measuring their claims against the actions and the impacts of their company. And I think the greatest thing that or challenge I had to their claims was their main goal was still driven by consumerism and by people buying more and consuming more. And like the end goal for them was to, I guess, it was just replacing one commodity with another, which had the same potential and was driven by the same need for greed. You've got to want this product and we've just got to produce more of it because the more of it we produce, the bigger we get. Then somehow we're going to have the impact. And for me, it was like a lot of it comes back to actually also changing our whole desire as humans, right? And that which is like not to want more, but to need more, but to want less.
Yeah.
We if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what if the problem was consumerism? Full stop. So it doesn't matter what you're producing. The challenge we have, obviously, let's highlight these commodities, but something else could easily replace that and become the next drug, you could say, that we all need and desire,
Yeah.
and that will then just replace one commodity with another.
Well, I think what
Not
you're
that
getting
there's
to
not
the
a
heart
question there. I'm kind of unpacking something
Yeah, no,
maybe a
but you're
little
getting to
deeper
the
in
heart
in
of
this.
this debate. Tim, you just kind of hit the nail on the head in this like really fiery, feisty, passionate debate that people are having around the world about can we techno fix our way out of climate chaos and mass extinction? Or do we have to change our entire systems and our way of life? And I
Yes.
think the answer is that we're in such a bad place. We need both. This wonderful lady, Kate Raworth came up with donut economics, where we should start with the planetary boundaries and then work
Yes.
backwards to create economies that respect the planetary boundaries. And so, use this X amount of water, but you cannot use any more water than that because that's how much we can safely use in a healthy planet. We need a healthy planet. If we kill our planet, we've killed all industry and all of humanity and made ourselves like extinct like the dinosaurs. So then, based on that water use that we can afford, how do we apportion it to this industry and that industry and this and based on that, this is how much concrete we'll have, this is how much steel we'll have, et cetera. So this donut
Mm,
economics idea, along with a lot of other sort of more deep philosophical thinkers who say we have to rethink our systems, we have to
mm,
rethink our way of life, we have to rethink how we're governing ourselves on this planet. That's kind of one pathway. And then there are a lot of other people who say, well, we can replace cars with electric cars. We can replace energy with renewable. We can replace bad coffee with good coffee, bad palm oil with good palm oil. We can, instead of using those little packaging things that are made out of styrofoam, we can make it out of fungi. And look, I think that we shouldn't be setting ourselves up as enemies and shooting each other in this war, right? Because essentially we must techno fix everything that we are going to do to make it lighter on Mother Earth, better, more ethical for people and for planet. And in addition, we also have to like rethink our systems because frankly, our systems suck.
mhm.
I will just say one last thing about that billionaire who I think is really Elon Musk.
Oh,
If you notice, but it turns out that like most of the endangered species in the world in a really small number of like gems, so diverse gems. There's just
Mm.
5 countries: Philippines, Brazil, Indonesia, Madagascar, Colombia. They have 60% almost of the places that we need to protect ASAP, yesterday, toot toot on the double, to
Hmm.
like stop this mass extinction crisis, or put the brakes on, throw the brakes on a little. And only 7% of the land that was protected over the last 5 years overlapped with those critical areas for rare species. And it turns out that Elon Musk could save all of that with 16% of his net worth. So I'm sorry, but like, although
Yeah.
I totally love electric cars, and I have an electric car, and I mostly actually bicycle. I almost never drive, but to the extent that we drive, we have an EV. I think just saying that you're an executive of an electric car company is the most absurd, stupid answer of all time. He's like
It's
the
so
richest person in the
ridiculous.
world. He's so effing rich. If he's going to get all this money from our global system, he should also be paying to protect our global system. And 16% of his worth would essentially stop mass extinction. Oh, yeah.
And I think that's kind of I guess the challenge is that people can come out saying that they're the biggest champion for climate change and they're the biggest champion for making the world better. Yet the drivers and of everything that they do are based on greed, based on the systems that actually don't make. Can you get to this point of making the world better when the motivations by what you're doing don't kind of tap back into how do we address the human problem? Because at the end of the day, it's humans that make decisions about what we do. Like Elon can make a decision about sharing, not even half of his wealth, but sharing a very minute portion, right, of his wealth, which he wouldn't miss in a heartbeat. But that's a human decision. And so that's why for me, I'm so drawn to humanity in my realm of you could say justice work and human rights, because whilst the impact that is feeling it the most might be our environment and animals and those lower in the food chain, it's us, with it's humans that have the greatest power and ability to make the changes and the
Oh, we
decisions to
do.
do that.
We have power. We have beautiful power, Tim. You are right. I think there should be nobody listening to this podcast who walks away feeling enraged and disempowered. No, 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 no,
Yes.
no, no. No, we have gorgeous, fabulous power. Rich, evil people have done bad things for a very long time, right? Like it used to be kings and queens who would just say, "Off with your head, Tim. I'm deporting you to Australia because you stole a wig."
Yeah.
And rich, bad people have done a lot of horrible things for centuries, millennia, right? But I mean, they have millions in cash, and we have millions of people. That's how we got the weekend. That's how we got minimum wages. That's how we got all workers' rights, right? It's people power.
It
Think
is,
about
yes.
women who were, denied the vote and treated like chattel and raped by their husbands and terrible things. Oh my God, it was so hard and awful to be a woman for the longest time. Nobody gave women the vote and was like, "Oh, I think it would be a lovely idea to treat women like equal people."
Mhm.
No, no, no. I mean, to end slavery, to give women suffrage, to end Jim Crow in America, activists and millions of normal people had to step up and sacrifice and try and fight. But the beautiful thing is, people power absolutely works. That is
Yes.
how we are where we are, people power.
Yeah.
And for something like your car, your bike, your apparel, your coffee, your Nutella, whatever it is, you can stand up and be counted. At Coffee Watch, we made this one-stop shop that's like this little place on our website where it just tells you every single good thing you can do for coffee. All the petitions you can sign, which by the way are mostly not ours. They're other people's, but we just think they're beautiful. We put it all in one place. You can just go click, 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 click. We put all the ways that you can buy from the heart and change your own purchasing practices. But let me give your listeners like more hope and more ideas. If
Yeah.
you care about making the world a better place, like drink a cup of coffee, and that can be something that you do to make the world a better place. Buy from the heart, buy mindfully, change your institution. Are you at a university? Are you in an office? Do you go to a church, a synagogue, a mosque? Like, change their coffee, just tell them. Most people do not have such strong feelings about coffee, but if you come and you tell them like the truth about
Yeah.
the immense poverty, there are 25 million coffee farmers and 100 million farm workers. Almost none of them are earning a living income. Living income is exactly what it sounds like. It means you can live on it. Most of them are
Mhm.
in extreme poverty. Coffee is not just driving deforestation, it's driving a large chunk of the world's extreme poverty. And that is why there's so much child labor. There are millions of kids because we're playing Russian roulette with child labor whenever we have poverty. So, you know, you can become a coffee ninja, a sustainable coffee ambassador. Do you go to a cafe regularly? Are you friends with I go to a cafe. I'm friends with all the baristas there. They're lovely, nice people. We get along really well. When I told them the truth about coffee, they literally just changed the coffee in the restaurant.
Mm.
You can probably do that. Almost everyone who drinks coffee either has a cafe or a restaurant or a uni or an office. You can become like a change agent. You can become an ambassador. And, once you've done it for coffee, think of that as your training wheels. What's the next thing you're going to take on? Is it energy? Is it apparel? Is it your seafood? We don't have to be
I mean,
perfect.
the
We
thing
do
is, the
something,
list
but
is
start
endless.
somewhere, right?
Well, and the list becomes endless, which is it's a never-ending journey. Like at some point, you're like, oh,
But it's not a daunting, never-ending journey like, "Oh my god, this sucks. I'm never gonna get to the bottom of it." It's this beautiful, like a flower unfurling, you know? The first petal unfurls, and that's when you realize, "Oh my god, this flower is gonna be the most beautiful thing." And your whole life can be this thing where, like, every year you set yourself this new personal challenge. What new thing can I do that's amazing this year? Like, and by the time you die, you will have become this fabulous change agent for all the different little things, whether it's your toothpaste or your recycling or your car or your coffee. People all around you will be like, "Hey, Tim, that Tim guy, wow, he totally changed my life." But not just once, like over and over. He's
yeah.
such a role model. Think of it that way. We have this immense power, and it's a privilege and it's a joy to try to be a better person in the world and live through solidarity. It's kind of a beautiful thing, isn't it? If you think about it like glass half
Well,
full.
and that's kind of, I mean, when it comes to, and then that's the one of the things I loved, even just as we began talking, was this positive energy that you still fused, even though we started talking about, people being scared of you. You quickly kind of pivoted it to this. Well, the important thing is though, we've got to create space, right? Or people to see themselves, as you're positioning it now, as a hero rather than as a villain. Like
Yeah.
that we can, and to be drawn by, this isn't just about bad people versus good people,
No, no, no.
fight. This is a really, and it comes to this, I guess, being humble as humans, right? Being willing to constantly be saying, well, I didn't know that. And now I do. I'm not going to kind of arch up and defend why I've been doing that and to save my own pride or skin or to, the other side of it, though, is people can often make people, like you said, we don't wanna be people that make them feel bad about, "Oh, you just
Don't feel
highlighted."
bad. No, no.
No, but this is always the challenge because,
It's a challenge. It's true. It's
I
true.
the challenge is we've gotta meet people where they're at, and all
Yes.
of us are at a stage in our journey because of we probably just didn't know better, or this is what we were brought up to think or to know how to, my kids play in local footy team and they're around, we're engaging with different people in our society that have often very different, I guess, priorities or different things that are important to them and that they really care about. They might say something that could be, say, offensive. If someone we come across says something that's really offensive, and instead of saying, "Hey, you can't say that word," or "You shouldn't say that," pointing the finger at, whilst it's important that we, I don't think stay silent or allow maybe a word that was offensive or a phrase. But if we come at people, meet them where they're at and be like, hey, I wonder,
Yeah.
probably if I grew up with parents like them, or if I grew up with that, maybe I'd be saying the same thing too. But come at it
Yeah.
with a curiosity and a
Absolutely.
space for people to be
Yes.
like, hey. And I think that's one of the things I've really enjoyed. I really enjoyed is this constant rephrasing of let's go on a journey together
Yeah,
of
exactly.
creating this flowering, blooming, ever blooming positive world.
Let's go on a journey together. Not like, "I hate you, you're stupid."
Yeah.
No, all those things you said, curiosity, kindness, space, love, patience, those are the keys. Tim, what you said, I'm just going to repeat it because it was so deep. This is not about good people versus bad people. This is about good people being their best selves, however they can, to help other good people to make the world a better
Yes.
place. And I'm going to come clean. I will bare my soul. I'm not going to like get naked on your YouTube, but
Yeah.
I'm going to do something almost worse, which is to confess. I have drunk so much shitty coffee in my life, Tim. I didn't even know. Like, I've been drinking coffee probably since I was 16 or something. I had no idea how bad it was until, wow, like a decade ago. And I'm a super old dinosaur. So I will just say, I've drunk many, many shitty, horrible slavery child labor coffees in my life. I suck too. I suck too. And it's not about sucking, actually. I should, even with myself, I should be kinder. Everyone should be kind to themselves and give
Mm.
themselves like a break. The system has set itself up so that we are drinking this poison coffee without knowing it, right? And it's not about whether we've done something wrong or been complicit in something wrong. It's about, okay, now that I know, now what am I going to do with that knowledge? And I don't have to be perfect. I will just do the best that I can. Like, even I run Coffee Watch. A couple of weeks ago, I had to go to see family, and so I'm flying, and I have a toddler. Oh my God, I was so exhausted, and my toddler was grumpy. I just like went, and I couldn't find even any organic coffee. I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm just gonna drink whatever coffee. I just like went, and I got coffee. It's probably terrible coffee. I drank bad coffee in a non-compostable, non-recyclable takeaway cup. I was like, oh, this is so wrong.
I hope no one sees me that knows. Thank
I
God
feel
you're
like
not that
almost
famous, right?
waking up almost more than the coffee. No, but like I totally know for reals how wrong it was, and I still did it anyways. But I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna like that's my failure of the day. It's okay. Don't hate yourself. Don't beat yourself up for things like that. Just put that energy into trying harder next time.
And I think though the key though is baby steps,
Baby
right?
steps. Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of people. And a
Yeah.
baby step for Elon Musk is a giant step for me in one category or one, maybe the use of finances, but in terms of, him making a baby step in one little change that he could make can have a huge impact. Just like a little
All of
baby
us.
step that I make can still have a massive impact
Yeah.
in on to just I've got 4 young children, right? And so they're all watching. They're all
Yeah.
watching the decisions I make, and so the baby step I make might actually be a massive change or shift. That 2-degree shift I make here, I know that in the next generation or in the future, it'll be a difference between being that far apart down the road.
That's right. That your kids will
And
force multiply it. And not just that, but Tim, all your friends, everyone you talk to, you're shaping their life, right? In such a positive way most of the time. And it's baby steps. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. That's crazy.
yeah, just on the coffee thing, because it's obviously something like you said,
It's a
there's
good
this
baby
place where
step. It's a good baby step.
yeah. I mean, I don't drink coffee. I mean, if I ever do, like, I feel like I have to order something. It's usually decaf. Like I said, I just probably don't need anything else buzzing through my system.
Can I tell you something crazy about decaf? Just as a little parenthesis. Did you know the US government allows the use of a chemical in decaf that was banned in paint thinner? I am not making that up.
Well, you've just ruined my ordering of decaf now.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know what
Back
it's
to
like in
tea.
Australia. Maybe it's better in
Back to
Australia.
my
Maybe
British
there's like a
roots.
stricter control over the chemicals that are used in the processing of coffee to turn it into decaf. But in the US, yeah. And actually, you know what's nuts? A lot of pregnant ladies drink decaf. I drank decaf the whole time I was pregnant.
Yes. Ah, and I guess
Do
that
you
I
really
mean,
think we should be giving pregnant ladies like trace amounts of something that was banned in paint thinner? I'm just gonna throw that question out there for your
well,
listeners.
we certainly shouldn't be giving them Tylenol. So let's certainly,
Yeah, no Tylenol. But paint thinner is
yeah,
fine.
that's right. No Tylenol, but let's throw some paint thinner in there. It's no worries.
No worries. That'll turn out so good. Plus, the umami of the paint thinner is like that taste, just brings out the floral notes and the coffee, the caramel, je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, yeah. I know. It's, but I guess for people
Sorry,
like,
I totally derailed you because you said decaffeinated red ice on paint thinner.
where do people go to like say, well, how do I know if the coffee my favorite barista is serving is, free trade or not free trade? Like, how do I know? How can I really make these baby steps, and where's the best place to start? Like, what would you say just in this one area, say of coffee? And you could apply this to any industry like fashion. Like, how do I know if do I boycott going to Target? Do I boycott XYZ? Like, how do we make, I guess, these easy next baby steps? What would you advise as everyday people?
Well, I will say it for coffee and then for stuff in general, yeah, because I think there's like coffee is almost a poster child, but there's more broad things we could say as well about our consumption overall. So for coffee, one of the easiest things you can do is we put a one-stop shop on coffeewatch.org that just has every single thing that you can do to be a better coffee drinker or sustainability coffee ninja. All the petitions you can sign, all the ways to buy more mindfully, the guides to better coffee. It turns out certification isn't really always that great
Yes.
because often certification just doesn't deliver on a comprehensive set of sustainability indicators that you think they would. So for example, organic, it's great that it's got no harmful chemicals in the growing of the coffee, but organic, literally, they will tell you, we don't look at rape, child labor, whether you have union busting, deforestation, agroforestry, just not our wheelhouse. So people sort of walk into the store and they look for that certification and they think, ooh, that's going to fix everything. And I'm like, well, it definitely fixes some things. But if, you told me Etelle, sing the alphabet. And I was like, A, B, C, Z, you would say, what? That's not the alphabet. I was expecting the alphabet. Yeah, certifications can be a partial solution to coffee consumption, but all the best advice I have about how to buy mindfully is on Coffee Watch. And in a nutshell, if you buy coffee like every day, you drink it every day, you only have to do the research one time. You don't even have to go to Coffee Watch if you don't want to. Just research once for 1 hour of your life, ethical coffee near me, and then find something that's traceable, that's paying a living income, that doesn't have harmful chemicals, that was grown in regenerative agroforestry instead of pesticide-soaked deforestation driving monoculture with slaves. And once you've figured out what that coffee is, or you can get a couple of them and try them to see which one tastes better, just keep buying that. Just put it on autopilot. Have it delivered every month. Find the most ethical cafe near you and try to go there. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Just do your best. That one-time research will serve you for a lifetime, pretty much. So that's my advice for buying coffee. And I will also say, you could keep doing exactly the same coffee. You don't have to change it at all. If all you did was to go on the social media of that company and take pictures of yourself saying like, oh, my name is Tim. I drink your coffee every day. And I'm really unhappy that you're not paying a living income for the farmers and farm workers. Companies go crazy when consumers do things like that. So you can keep doing the exact same bad coffee, problematic coffee, but you can change it. You can be a change agent from inside if you wish, right? And I would say that's also true for a lot of things, whether it's your chocolate, your seafood, your milk. I mean, of course, you can go from seafood to vegan. That's probably better, but there's also fake seafood. You can go from burgers to Impossible and Beyond Burger, which are vegan, or you can do better cattle products that are more ethical, leather as well as meat. If you're drinking milk, plant-based is so much better for the planet. But if you've got to drink cow milk for whatever reason, there are companies that are more ethical. I would just say, try to do 1 hour of research about the key things in your life, your food, the big ticket items that you buy, like your car, your house. Just try to do a little bit of research. It will carry you through, in the long run. And even if you stick with the same consumption that you have, try to be a change agent from the inside. Let's say you don't want to switch to plant-based milk. You just want to keep drinking cow milk. Write to your company that's selling you the cow milk that you've purchased and say like, hey guys, what's your plan for carbon? You can reduce carbon of dairy a lot by giving these little seaweed additive food supplements to the cow. You can reduce 80% of their methane emissions, their farts and their burps and stuff get much better. There's so many fixes in so many aspects of our life, whether it's farts in your milk or slavery in your coffee. Every part of your life basically can be better just try to do it stepwise. Like you said, Tim, baby steps. Give
Mm.
yourself this goal, this month it's going to be this, next year it's going to be that. And you give yourself these little goalposts. You give yourself a little reward every time you meet them, and you can be a beautiful change agent. You just have to believe in yourself and try.
Well, that is one, it's very practical, and it's one, it's very hope-filled. And I think I think it's a perfect way to kind of come to a close here in our wonderful conversation, which I feel like we only just got going into. I love having people like you that obviously see the destruction and hate and the pain and sometimes depressing evil in our world, but find a way to chart a path and give some real way out for us as in humanity to see a brighter and better future. I wish there were definitely more tales in the world. We definitely need people out there that do the hard work that often others don't have the time or the energy where we could be so, I know how busy life can get for so many of us. And
Yeah.
I think but it is important that we have the tools at our disposal, like whether it's going to coffeewatch.org. I'm reading here about the many ways that, like you listed, it's very easy to and accessible to find resources like this to help us make these decisions about, like you said, whatever is important in your life. For someone like me, coffee is not the most important thing, but for my wife, it is. So we'll definitely be looking at what coffee she buys and grinds in the morning. But yeah, I really appreciate the still the hope and the optimism that you bring to this work. I think it can be really hard for someone like you that's constantly having to read about and be confronted with the weight. I know it's something I struggle with. I don't know how you feel. How do you turn a
It's
lot of
hard
that
sometimes, it's very hard,
darkness into
but
positivity?
yeah, sometimes it's very hard, but I feel like the alchemy that transforms the bitter darkness into hope in my life, it's love. I'm just so lucky to have the most
Mm,
wonderful husband and all these great friends and an adorable toddler who all just shower me with love. And it's alchemy. It's magic, and it helps
mm,
me. But I think also people often think about hope like some kind of there's a great quote. It's not a lottery ticket that you just like clutch while you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Hope is a battering ram. You
mm,
hang down the door of despair and injustice with this battering ram. And I think that almost the worse I see things, the slavery, the child labor, the worse things that I see, the harder I clutch that battering ram to try to knock down all those systems and paradigms and change them. And, what gives me the most hope is love of the people close to me, and also this love that I feel for all these beautiful people that I've met in the world. Sometimes you just meet them in passing, but like this chat with you, it gave me hope and energy and it filled me with this positive vibration. And I feel like, it's super early in the morning for you and super late for me. As our time differences are hard to align, but I don't feel tired. I'm walking away from this feeling love and positivity. And I think if we open our hearts to the beauty of other folks on this earth who are also trying to make it a better place, we can just recharge our batteries endlessly and get to a higher plane.
Well, I likewise feel such a gratitude for the energy in this kind of conversation, talking about difficult things, talking about things that have existential ramifications. Yet we can still lean in with and choose to speak with that openness. And I think if we can have more conversations, which is why this podcast is really all about having these conversations and unpacking them with and a driver of inspiration, that if we can all be inspired to make a change, be inspired to be better, to do better. I know I've never been proud of the things that I've been done in my life when I've been motivated by fear or by guilt or by some kind of negative emotion. But when I've been able to tap into, whether it be inspired by someone else's courage or whether it be, like you said, opening our hearts to be more compassionate about others and what they're going through, then it does, I think, lead us on to making this world a better place. And I really appreciate all you do. All the best for not only Coffee Watch, but your family and all the important things that in your life and in your world. And is there any place or where people can find you? Anywhere else if people want to learn more and shout out to any of those things that
Yeah,
you can share with
yeah,
our
you are
listeners?
so sweet, kind to suggest this, Tim. Thank you. I mean, our website has all of our social media at the bottom. So if you just go to coffeewatch.org, at the bottom, you'll find our Facebook and Insta and LinkedIn and Blue Sky and all those things. You can just follow us on social, and we try to post not only bad real news about what's going wrong in coffee, but also lots of news of hope and action and what people can do. So it feels hopefully like a constantly renewing source of inspiration and ideas for people who care about making their coffee choices better.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of the Just Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you found it valuable in any way, why not share it or leave a review or drop a comment, Spotify or YouTube, wherever you've tuned in. I promise you every little bit helps get these conversations out there. Now, you can always reach out to me directly at timothybuxton.com. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, let's keep creating a world where we all belong. And I'll see you next time for another courageous conversation.